Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net. Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
Do you ever wonder when Spider-Man goes to the bathroom if the toilet paper sticks to his fingers?
Do you ever wonder why Superman wears his underwear outside of his pants?
My name is Imran.
My name is Anthony.
He's the Jock!
And he's the Nerd.
And we're your hosts for the Jock and Nerd podcast, where we sometimes try to attempt to answer these questions.
This is a full spoiler podcast, and we swear a lot.
Check it out for awesome geek news, interviews, and comic book reviews. Visit jockandnerd.com. We are your superhero TV, movies, and comic book culture curators.
Boom.
Jockandnerd.com. Jock and Nerd!
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast. And or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org, or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name is Jen, and I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, as always, we have Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
You mean Brian?
Yeah, there's that.
I'm kind of occasionally here.
Yep.
Life happens. We get it.
Yep.
Yes, it do.
Yep.
So how's it going, Henno? You want to start us off?
Oh,
Sure.
What do you mean you want to start us off?
Yeah, like there's choices.
He doesn't get a choice in this. Yeah.
So funny.
I was being nice, but hey.
Rules is rules.
Exactly. Wait, wasn't it your last show about choices?
Yeah, but you don't get one here.
Well, like you said last week, all I can do is choose my reaction.
That's right.
I choose acceptance. something I wasn't choosing much of before we started recording. I was not accepting what was going on there. It's been a pretty good week. I've been, laying out in the sun a lot and getting ready for vacation and hitting the gym, get the guns out.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Posing in the mirror
really,
with your, in the tuxedo. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Pulled that out, checked it out, see if I was going to wear it.
Yeah.
Shaved my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the usual good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's been pretty good. It's weird. I've had a few little side jobs that I agreed to do, and I find that I get a lot of anxiety about them when I happen to be like it's not like I'm not going to get the job done. When it was proposed, I was like, yeah, no problem. I can help you with that. And then when it comes time to going and doing it, I've got this weird anxiety that hits me, and I don't know where it's coming from. Been kind of strange because it's not like there's no pressure. All I have to do is show up.
Yeah.
It's not like it's something that's beyond my abilities.
Yeah.
I have this anxiety about it.
Yeah. Well, that's typically how anxiety works. Like for me too, and I'm sure most people or everybody, whatever, is, that it's something you can do or you're fine. Like I get anxiety just going to hang out with Tony. And it's like, this is my best friend. We're going to have a good time. Why am I getting anxiety? But I do,
But
so
you do, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I wish I was doing something else.
It's
And
not
it's
even
like,
that for me,
why?
but yeah, it's just like, what are you doing?
But that's, it feels like that. Like,
Yeah.
I just I just want to go hide under my pillow.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, but like hiding under your pillow or making some extra money that someone's like happy to have you come. It's been strange. I think, I think it might be tied to, it's just, I'm just guessing, but years and years of just stress.
Yeah.
From saying yes too much and not saying no and spreading myself out too thin and then when I moved up here, making the decision not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then when it comes up, and it's odd how it comes up. Like if I said yes to doing a bunch of podcasts, that's not a big deal. If I said yes to going and doing a bunch of gigs, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But for something, and that's why I think it might be related to just past, stressors and that kind of stuff. Why it brings it up. Just because other things that are even more time consuming, and you think going on stage would be anxiety producing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think.
I was listening to podcast last night, and it's from two guys that used to be professional wrestlers named Edge and Christian. And Christian was talking about how before every time he would go through the curtain, to come out to the crowd and stuff, he would be standing there beforehand and he would just get all of the this anxiety and am I up to this? And he goes, once I went through the curtain, I got this. But he's standing there in those moments beforehand. He's like, I was just loaded with self-doubt. And it's like, wow, because again, this is a guy who, excelled at the highest level of what it is that he does.
Yeah.
But even still, before every performance, he was super nervous. And until football players, you hear him, I'm nervous. And, and then once I get on the field, it's muscle memory, basically. So
Yeah,
I find that interesting because
it is
so weird on something that you've practiced at, you've done, you've rehearsed it. So you should be super confident, and you are, he is, was, but yet you still get that anxiety before you go out there.
Yeah. Strange. And then the weird part afterwards is when everyone's happy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for fixing it. Give me your invoice and your bill. And I don't want to do it. It's so weird. It
Yeah.
just it has to be tied in.
I think that probably goes to your people pleasing thing, because a lot of stuff it's probably like, well, this is no big deal.
Yeah, and also I think
know?
also, you know, if I had so much anxiety about it, then to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
then I think there's a lot of I'm not worthy and not valuing my time. And I'm definitely
Exactly.
not valuing
Yeah.
my time. I know that.
Yeah, because I was thinking
Yeah,
along the
yeah.
lines of like, you know, when they're like, oh yeah, you know, give me your invoice, and then you have that, well, I don't want them to think that I'm greedy, so I'm going to give them a, you know, a really good price on this, which, like you said, it's undervaluing yourself and whatever. So yeah, it's there's a lot of it's amazing. That's a road loaded with speed bumps.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's still, it's just a reminder. Like I always say, there's no finish line.
Yep.
You know, it's
an oval track.
Yeah, it really is, and I just keep coming back around to that one point.
It happens.
Yep.
Oh boy, it'd be so much better to just do a backcountry race.
Yeah, no,
it's not a loop.
Nope.
Can't I move on to the next
nope,
section? Nope. But
No
then
turns, all left.
Yep.
exactly. But then the rest of my week, when you think about it, is also all the same thing. Not a whole lot different.
Yeah.
I'm very much a creature of habit, and it makes me very happy. It's just in this one particular little thing. So, but yeah, it always makes me chuckle. And and today was weird. I was just walking down the hallway, and I literally had the thought of what a cold beer tastes like.
Oh wow, that is a weird random thought.
And it was weird.
That's
And
odd. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just one of those like, and it was in the morning. I can't say I was like thirsty. It's not like I'd been hot, but all of a sudden I just had that I could, it wasn't about the taste. It was about sensation.
Ah, okay.
You know, it was about what a beer does to your mouth, kind of the feel and the cold and the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, that was a weird thought, because I really wasn't that much of a beer drinker ever.
Yeah.
It was like one of those, it was almost like just like a memory that just came in. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's what that used to be like. And then I let it go.
Yeah. Well,
Your mind's just having all sorts of fun with you this week, isn't it?
yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love it. That's why it's a dangerous neighborhood up here.
Yeah. I hear you.
Understand.
Yep.
See what happens? I miss one podcast.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go drink.
Yeah.
With you.
Yep.
But I didn't.
That's why I don't miss
And I'm
any.
sober.
No. Which, you know, of course we're glad about, because, you know, we joke, but of course, you know, that wouldn't be funny.
Well, but there's the thing is, it's
Yeah.
true. That's why one of the reasons I want to do this podcast every
Yeah.
week is because I get something from it.
I think though, like, to make sure we don't overlook something there, I think that's a really, you know, that is a really major statement though, because you're how many years sober now?
12.
Right? And you still had that sensation.
Yep.
You know, even though it wasn't like a super strong, like you didn't go drink, you weren't, you know, like standing at the store looking at the beer case,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, or anything like that. But it's still the idea that it's like, that's where it starts. Just
It
that
was
thought
palpable,
pops
like,
in your
yep.
head, you know?
That's it. And it popped in my head like a realistic thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, on a hot day,
Yeah.
that beer that did something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
And it was right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
why I said it's
out to get me.
I think that's a good thing to see though, as far as for some, like if someone listening is, you know, in the struggle, it's kind of like this shows, like we were just talking, it's like, you know, there's no finish line. That's a perfect, you know, situation here but you've got tools in your toolkit now to handle
That's it.
that stuff. So
And I also know that that's not unusual. A lot of people, it freaks them out really hard.
sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Sharon has a lot more. Like she tells me all the time about it. She's like, yeah, she loved beer too, and sometimes she's like, wow, I just had that overwhelming craving all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know, no, she's not going to do anything about it.
Right.
You know, if anything, she'll go to a meeting or do something like that. But
Right.
it's just also just to remind anybody that it doesn't matter how long you have not done something, that little moment can happen, and it doesn't mean you're inevitably going to go drink.
Right.
But it's normal, but it's the time then to ask other people who also have those things. Well, when you have this, what do you do?
Yeah. Like I said, it's a good time to double down on, like you said, go to a meeting or talk with somebody. Yeah, it's a good time to double down on that to, re-emphasize your support system.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good thing. I had a really great resentment before this show, and here I get to podcast and let it go.
Yep.
I'm sorry, let it be.
Yeah.
Next.
Well, I'll go next. So it's been a pretty standard week, nothing too outrageous one way or another. I did get, trying to think of the words I want to use, because it's been interesting, because at work we transitioned to a new system. I think I might have mentioned it before on the podcast, and so we're now all transitioned and everything is settled, and I'm now kind of at this place where I know enough to be dangerous. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't repeat past issues that I've had.
Okay.
I get complacent very easily, and I don't want to get complacent. I don't want to fall back in my old behaviors and my old patterns. So I'm trying very hard to kind of stay above that and stay as proactive as possible. And I just remembering and owning the fact that this is where I wasn't as good as I could have been. And how am I going to step it up? How am I going to step my game up and stay on top of the ball versus falling behind the ball, which is what I usually would end up doing. It's cool because I've got a really good support system at work. I actually sit right next to my manager and I got a good relationship with her. So that's good. And I've been getting very good positive feedback from her, and from the other ladies that I work with, which is awesome. So that's definitely helping to keep me on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice to have feedback to kind of help you make your internal adjustments as to what needs to happen and where things are going. And then another really cool thing that's popped up is I've gotten an opportunity to go on another podcast, which is awesome, for a guest spot. And it's brought up some interesting ideas and my thoughts in my head. And I have a tendency to bite off more than I can chew and get really excited about projects and wanting to do all these wonderful things. But then my bipolar gets involved, and my anxieties and stuff get involved. And pretty soon I find myself in the deep end, and it's like, I want to do all of this. I need to do all of this because this is what's going to make me happy. But my mental health is going, nuh-uh. And that's when it kind of rears its ugly head and I start sliding. And so I'm working through how to approach this in a very thoughtful, very reasonable manner and very upfront and open manner so that I can make sure that I'm not making commitments that I can't uphold. And so that's kind of where my head's been for the last week or so, in doing that. So will I be on, a co-host on another podcast? It looks like it's probably going to end up happening, but the timing of it and the commitment based upon it, I'm working directly with the gentleman who has the podcast right now. So we'll work through all of the minutia and stuff to kind of make that end up happening. I'm hoping. So it's just been really interesting because as I'm bouncing it off people, the same thing keeps coming up. Don't overextend. Don't spread yourself too thin. And, there's a variety of different statements for it. And there's a reason for that because we all have a tendency to do that. So, yeah, that's kind of where my head's been. The other thing, it's been interesting kind of being on my own at nights during the week. And that is the nice thing about podcasting is it does help me to fill in that gap so that I don't get too lost in my own thoughts. Too much time on in my own head is never a good place to be.
Like Henno said a little bit ago, it's a dangerous neighborhood. Yep. Yep.
Dangerous neighborhood. Not a whole lot of cops up there.
Yep.
Just my husband said it to me before. He's like, you need to talk to me because I can't read what's going on up there, and you're left alone to your own devices is not a good place. Mm-hmm. He's like, you've got to keep me in the loop because otherwise I come up with this stuff that I have no clue where it came from. So you've got to keep the open communications going. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons I love this podcast so much is because I don't stop and reflect as much as I should. And this causes me to stop and reflect and look back on what I've been spending my time with and as far as mentally what's been on my mind and stuff. So it's really a great place to not only hold myself accountable, but also to kind of, I flesh some of this stuff out on air with you guys right now. It's like things I haven't really even given much thought to. I'm sitting here talking about and actually having realizations and action items coming up in my head as we actually talk. So there you go, folks. You get to see my thought process in action. Scary as it is, there you go. So that's been what I've been working on and what's been happening in my head. How about you, Brian? What's going on with you?
It's been, I don't know. It's been a week. Again, struggling with feeling overwhelmed this week. And again, I know it's all self-inflicted. But it's still there. It doesn't really matter who put it on me to some extent because it's, it's there. But I've been trying to, like I've talked the last few weeks, just, little at a time, just keep moving forward and all that. And it's, it's going. Today's been rough because, today's my dad's birthday and that's always a kick in the pants for me. And, as much as I would, I want to celebrate the things he gave me, the memories and stuff that I got from him and whatever. It's always hard to not really get blinded by the pain first, and that's kind of where I was overnight was I was up and as we've cited twice already, dangerous neighborhood, up by yourself, and you start thinking, and and it just was just not in a great way last night. Like nothing, no like harm to myself or others kind of situation, but just just in a bad place. But it was also a place I kind of just I needed to just sit in it, And I've been reading off and on stuff about that, about instead of avoiding or distracting, it's like, sometimes you need to sit in your feelings. And I think we talked about it on one of the episodes of the show, actually, just experience what you need to experience and everything. And it just, it just kind of sucked. And, like I said, it probably never won't. His birthday will probably never go by to where I won't, hurt that he's not here. We can't celebrate it, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I have better tools now to deal with it than I did for so many years. So I, basically just let myself sit in it for a while, and then I was like, okay, I, can't do this anymore. That's not good. So, you just kind of move on with the day or whatever. But I've also started this week, using the, app on my phone called, Waking Up, which is by, Sam Harris. And, it's a meditation app mostly, but it also, has mindfulness lessons and whatnot in it. And I've only done a few days of it so far, but it's really an interesting, because it's guided meditation. And the first couple, the first three, or they're like 10 minutes apiece. And it's funny because I love how he really is pointing out how it isn't, like, his goal is not to teach you how to be centered so much as it's to teach you to not be as distracted. And that, it's very interesting. Like, the second lesson, he the one part of it, he talks about focusing on your breath and then trying to just breathe, not focus on it, but just, let yourself breathe and count to 10 without being distracted. And I think I got to 3. And I was like, I kind of hope as this goes, I kind of hope he comes back to that at different times so that you can kind of feel like, oh, I can get to 6 now, or I can get to 8, or, you may never get to 10. I don't know, but that's kind of, the goal in that point is that there's so much that wants to distract you. Because, the hardest thing about meditating is, getting your brain to stop, firing thought after thought after thought after thought, But yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. At the end of the 10 minutes, I'm sitting there and I'm feeling different, so, I haven't jumped into the lessons on there yet, but I'm going to be doing that probably in the next couple days. So, yeah, the downside to the app is that it's normally like, I think they raised the price. I think it's like $15 a month now. But, there's a clause right on the iTunes thing that basically said, there's an email thing there, and it says, like, if you can't afford it, to email them.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
They will help. So, I'm not going to disclose any terms because I don't know how, they are about that as far as, I don't know if they do the same thing for everybody. I don't, I would assume so, but I don't know. So, but yeah, it's a really good app though, so far at least. I mean, like I said, grain of salt's only a few days, but I like his approach to it. And I think that makes a big difference. Because I've used some other apps that were guided meditation, and it just felt, I don't know, it just felt like I should be smelling incense while I'm doing it or something. It's like, it was a little too, like hippie for me. So, which is fine. For some people, that's great. For me, that's, it just doesn't, I don't connect to that. This is a guy who's I forgot what, he's like a neuroscientist or whatever, so it's very like, here's the logical way of meditation, type of thing. And it's like, yes, my brain clicks on this much better. So yeah, I recommend trying it if people haven't, if you can afford it, or again, if you can't, message them and see if you can get it or whatever. But there are other ones out there. There's plenty of good ones, like Calm is pretty good. And
yeah, I've heard that's good.
I can't think of, there's, was it 10% Better? And there's another one I've used that was decent. Because I basically, at one point, I just typed in, like, meditation and just downloaded, like, the top, I don't know, 5 or 7 or something like that. And just kind of,
awesome.
Tried each one. Because much like therapists or anything else, like I said, that one of them I listened to was like, yeah, this isn't for me. The one I listened to, the person's voice was annoying to me. And it's like, I'm never going to be able to focus when their voice is annoying. So, yeah. So that's, cool. That's pretty good. And, I haven't really done a whole lot though, that's really worth talking about. I was watching, before we get into our topic here, while I was eating dinner, I was watching American Ninja Warrior, and they had this younger guy on there, and they're showing the vignette of him training and all this, and of course he's crazy amazing and all this stuff, and then he comes out and he just blows through the course like it's nothing, right? And it's like, wow, that guy, and then when they go to talk to him, like, he's almost crying. And I'm like, what is going on with this guy? He then goes into, like, you can just tell he's super awkward. And he then starts going into how, like, up to an hour before go time, he basically almost pulled out because of anxiety. He said his anxiety was running so high. So again, Henno, like we talked a little bit ago, coming back to that, this is a guy that probably could blow through this course with his eyes closed almost, like he was so good. But anxiety doesn't care, it doesn't care if you're good at something. It doesn't care at all. And I was like, this is awesome that they're showing this, because this guy was having such a raw moment, but he was crying because of the relief of he did it. He pushed himself into his uncomfortable zone, which was going out in front of a crowd doing this, whereas most of the time he's probably doing it, in their gym with how many ever people are there, 10, 20 people, whatever, now he's doing it for a crowd of, I don't know, hundreds or so, and knowing you're also on TV for a crowd of millions.
Right.
But, and also the fact that, he just, he tore this course up. But I thought it was so good to see that, for that to be on TV, because it's like, those are the kind of moments I wish more people could see as far as anxiety goes. Like, people don't normally see that, because like the average person with anxiety, if they do something like that and they have that kind of moment, they're off in a bathroom somewhere probably, or outside, or, somewhere to recompose themselves type of a thing. And I think it's good for people to see that it's not like that. That wasn't a sign of weakness at that point. That was such a sign of relief, because his anxiety, was essentially over. But like I said, it was great to see. I hope more TV shows do this at times, because again, there's, like I mentioned with Christian, the wrestler and athletes in various sports I've heard of talking about their anxiety before games, and you can't take a Xanax and go play baseball generally, you got to be sharp when you're playing baseball, or you're going to get hit with a 90-mile-an-hour pitch in the head, so you have to handle things differently. And there's guys who've missed sporting events because of their anxiety, type of a thing. So it's good to see that shown, to kind of, it's another step in the knocking the walls down of the stigma around these things. And I'm so glad for this guy that he didn't give in to his anxiety, that he was like, nope, I'm going to, he was able to push into the skid, and as Tony said when we were talking on Salty Language, steering to the skid basically, but that he was able to walk into that really uncomfortable spot and still perform, and not only just go out there, but he was able to go out there and dominate, that's awesome.
Well, and I think a lot of people who do have that level of anxiety, and I can think of, lots of musicians and athletes that have talked about it way after the fact.
Yeah.
They rarely, they're in their gig glory. They're not going to talk about how they almost, lost their lunch before they walked out.
Or they, did lose their lunch. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I almost walked out the door and just went home.
Yeah.
No one ever talks about it. They're all into their, how their performance and this and that. And to have somebody come out and say, I'm so excited because I was about to leave, is huge, because that's inspirational right then and there.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I saw him crying, I was like, oh no, did he hurt himself or something? Yeah. Cause I'm like, well, maybe, did something and kind of, was able to work through it or something, and then when he said that, I was like, wow, yeah, he did have something and did work through something, that's
awesome.
That's a tough brick wall to run through. And so kudos to him for it.
And for it to be a man doing it as well.
Yeah,
that's another point.
Yeah.
Another level.
That's so true.
Because, a woman crying after doing something like that, unfortunately, it's not necessarily expected, but it's more accepted.
Yeah, I was going to say it's easily forgiven.
Man,
yeah.
Yeah. So to have a man break down and is that open and honest and raw about why, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so much strength right there. That blows your mind when you stop and you think about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said I'm so glad that wasn't like edited out or anything like that. Because they easily could have cut that section out, you know. But I love that it was left in. Because I don't think it's live, but I just love the fact that it was there though. So you know, if you have Hulu, I think they put episodes in there. So if anyone wants to watch it, you know, it'd be this week's episode of it. I forgot his name, but yeah, it's just it's an amazing thing too, because you watch him and you go, man, you know, it's like, I'm sure whoever the alternate was is also very good at what they do, but it was like, he was so good that it's like, man, his team would really be kind of, or not his team, but you know, like, cause they were all rooting for him. It's like, you know, the team would be like, oh man, you know, cause just that guy's such a good representative for them that it was, you know, good to see. And I loved it, you know, the guys from his gym or whatever that were there just going nuts when he finished and stuff, you know. So,
sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, one more thing before we get going on our topic for the day. I wanted to mention, I was talking with a friend, and I actually used the analogy because she said that she fell off the wagon and she's struggling to get back on the wagon. Meaning, I think in this case, she was talking about a diet. And I told her, I said, well, why don't you just wait for the next wagon to come around? And she stopped.
Yeah,
and
right?
I'm like, on the show, it's like sometimes you got to let go or be dragged.
Yep.
I said, don't be dragged. Let go.
Yep.
The next wagon will come around.
Yeah.
Just hop that sucker and you'll be good.
Yeah. Like, hey, maybe this one's going slower. It'll be easy to stay on, you know?
She's like, you know, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep. I said
it really is as hokey as as it sounds. It's so true though. It's you know, don't beat yourself up for, you know, if it's a diet or whatever it is. If you slip or whatever, it's like that happens. That's normal. It's okay. You know, just you know, try to get back after it.
I heard a horrible sobriety joke today. It was, you know, you heard someone say a drink, you know, if no matter what happens, a drink is never a solution. Well, a drink is always a solution. And I was like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Well, it's like saying quitting's not an option. I mean, yeah, it is. You know,
but a drink is literally
a solution. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, that is so freaking geeky and
it is.
Dumb.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yep.
All right, well, Hannah, I think you have our article for today if you want to kick us off.
So from Tiny Buddha, we are going to be discussing something by Sylvia Bastos. It's How to Journal Away Your Disappointment in Yourself. Now, at first blush, this sounds like a topic we've talked a lot about, which is beating ourselves up. That comes up a lot. But there's a little bit of a twist on this, which is why we're going to talk about it today. And I think, you know, we bring up journaling a lot, but we don't necessarily talk about how or techniques or, you know, how do you go about journaling? Most people just kind of do it their own way.
Yeah, because you remember like when we talked about, what was it? The one that I can't remember what it was. There was a technique that Tim Ferriss does where he writes down like, what is it, his problems or something like that? Or I can't remember what it is, but it sounds like a negative practice, but it isn't. He actually writes down essentially like what he's trying to like eliminate type of a thing. I forgot what it is now. Shoot.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm forgetting that too. I remember.
I'm going to look it up while we're talking here. Yeah,
that'll be good. So this article starts with the typical, you know, reminiscing about growing up, being down on yourself and thinking that you're not enough and that no matter what happens, you're never enough. And what do you do when you are constantly in that state, and maybe you do use journaling like affirmations or gratitude, but those don't help? If all you can do is beat yourself up all the time about how you look, what you said, how you performed, whether it was at work or, some sort of artistic thing, what do you do when all the negative self-talk needs something stronger than just an affirmation or gratitude? And so our author here says, without thinking, I started writing to myself what a wise mother or a loving mentor would tell me in this situation. It says, quote, "My dear, I know you are feeling anxious about not having completed all your tasks for today. I know it makes you doubt if you will ever be able to achieve your goals. I know it makes you fear that you will end up out of money, out of friends, out of love. But here's the truth. It doesn't matter that you had a bad day. I know you're trying hard. I know you're giving your best. You deserve a rest. You are amazing, and you are going to make it." And she said the effects were immediate. Like with nothing else I had ever tried before, I felt a deep sense of relief. I had just discovered my new soul medicine.
Interesting.
Isn't it? And then she goes on how this exercise works. The reason why so many of us constantly push ourselves to be more and do more and blame ourselves when we fail is because we're trying to get from others the approval we have never learned how to give ourselves. This exercise teaches us to do just that, to give ourselves the appreciation we crave so much. But there's one more reason why it's so powerful. It's because it's written in the second person.
Yeah.
That's the key. Because when we looked at this article before we started podcasting, Brian and I kind of laughed a little bit because we kind of joking about it. As, well, if you're just writing about how you're no good and your doubts and your fears and everything negative, you pick that thing up the next day, you look at it and you're like, wow, I'm a terrible person. You're like, how does that, where's there anything good that comes out of that? I mean, no wonder you just have like this disappointment in yourself and self-loathing if you're just putting it down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, a lot of people do, gratitude lists, all these things. But even still, to me, like I've written a lot of gratitude lists.
Yeah.
It tends to be the same list.
I can't remember who it was. It might have been, again, Tim Ferriss. I remember there's someone I was listening to talking about gratitude lists, and they don't let themselves use the same item. They do one a week, and they don't let themselves use the same one. Any of the same ones from the week before.
Come up with something new.
And they were like, even if one week it's 10 and the next week it's 3, like that's okay, but it has to be different. At least 1 week gap before you can reuse anything type of a deal. So I kind of like that.
I have a friend that sends me a gratitude every week, and I love it. It's not just like air.
Yeah.
Water. It's always something creative.
Yeah.
It could be something very simple, but it's a sentence or two.
Yeah.
It's about something that was happening that was like current events.
Okay.
And therefore it changes every week. So it to me, it has more power.
I agree.
There's more thought behind it.
I heard someone else say that they don't allow themselves to put anything like physical goods. Like you can't put your car or your house. Like, to really focus it more on experiences type of a thing or whatever, like, and really you can make up any rule you want to. There is really not a wrong answer to this. It's like realistically with any of this stuff, if it works for you and it gets you, where you need to be, it's probably.
Well, sometimes I just need to do a list. Sometimes I just do.
Mm-hmm.
I need to rattle off everything. It literally just needs to be a number.
Yeah.
I have to go, wow, that's a lot of stuff to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And the same thing with an affirmation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just need to just get it into my head, whether it's a meditation or a writing. And writing does make a difference.
Yeah.
That, and here's the thing. If that doesn't work, what do you do? And I think this is amazing. You reframe it.
Yep.
You are not going to be mean to a child.
Yeah.
You are not going to be mean to a sick friend.
Right.
If you have somebody that looks up to you as a mentor or, as a role model, you are not going to be mean to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're going to speak to them in a way that is worthy of who they are and in your relationship. So why wouldn't you do it for yourself? And that's the point. And there's 5 simple steps to this exercise. Step 1, whenever your negative self-talk or your anxiety kicks in, grab your journal and a pen. Number 2, observe the thoughts and feelings that are happening right now. Don't look away. Dive in. 3, now imagine that the person thinking those thoughts and feelings, those feelings, is your inner child. Try to feel compassion, empathy towards their pain. Now, Brian and I instantly laughed at the whole inner child thing. But then in the end, it's like, it makes perfect sense. But if you don't want to look at it as a child, if you just want to, I love this idea of it being her example of a loving mentor, of your wise great aunt or your grandmother or somebody that was in your life that would just know how to sit you down. Think of the Matrix and the cookie. See, that's a visualization. Let's say you don't have somebody in your life. Okay, think of somebody from a movie that is representative of this wise mentor, be it a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. And then number 4 here, it says, ask yourself, who is someone I look up to and what words would I like to hear from them in this situation? Be anybody.
Yeah.
Be higher power, God, a parent, a teacher. Like I said, think of the what's her name on the Matrix again? The Oracle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the first Oracle. The second one chain smoked too much.
Yeah.
But now put yourself in that person, entity shoes, and start writing the words to yourself, to your inner child, however you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea. I love that.
Yeah.
It is a really great concept.
I think it's interesting too, because it's like just the idea of sitting down and writing like notes or whatever to yourself, essentially as though you're having correspondence with it, but you are now, you're writing from another person's perspective. I think that it's awesome because it really gets you out of your own headspace, because you're trying to think of how they would approach it, or like you said, like the example they give of if you're talking to your inner child or just a friend or whatever the you need to label that as. I like that it gets you out of your head so that you can potentially go, wow, why am I being this difficult on myself? And that's
why
the
am
whole.
I being so mean?
Yeah, why am I being so mean?
Yeah.
Because negativity. She ends this article with a great couple little lines. You can't fight negativity with negativity. To break the loop, you need love. You've been hard enough on yourself. Give yourself the words and love you have been longing to hear. Do it from a different perspective. I like that so much because some people don't have anyone like this in our lives.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true.
They don't. And as a matter of fact, I would totally get it if you're watching a movie, a television show, listening to music, and you heard that voice and you thought to yourself, wow, I wish I had someone in my life to talk to, that would talk to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would then be that person in your life. You can be that person. You can give yourself the love that you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is a little bit of imagination, a little creativity, and some kindness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I said. I think this is a really good, like you said, we kind of, laughed and made our jokes about it originally, but, it really does, I like the box that it puts on you, but it also, it removes you from your box and puts you into another box, because it still has some limitation to it, but it's not the same limitations, like you said, if
inner child you came up and said, you know, I'm terrible at this, I'm terrible at that, it's like you wouldn't want to look at a child of any kind and just, you know, be like,
yeah, you're right.
You're terrible. Yeah.
You suck.
Yeah. You know, now don't get me wrong. There's been parts of my life where I probably would have been like, yeah, he's got a point. You know, like, you know.
No, you offer encouragement.
Right. But that's part of
matter.
Right. That's part of the exercise though too, is that you're not allowed to do that. You know, like you don't let yourself, like you said, you can't find negativity with negativity, you know. And if nothing else, it's also it also can be a really good exercise just in compassion. As well as mindfulness, you know.
Yeah.
Because like I said, sometimes it can remove you from the forest so you can see the perspective a little bit, is, you know, the thought of the whole exercise. But also it's like, well, what if someone does come to you with these things? How do you react now? How would you react? You know, like if someone came to you with the exact same things that you're beating yourself up for, how would you react to them?
To them, yeah.
And if you find that it's harsh, then this exercise also might be really good for you to practice better reactions.
Like, I was thinking about like the kid that goes out on the soccer field or baseball and just stinks.
Yeah.
But they went out there and they went for it, and they come off the field and a parent or a coach or somebody, you know, the kid's just disappointed and, you know, I'm terrible and I have no bit. And it's like, what do the parents do, or the coaches? They say, you know, way to go, everyone, you know, good job out there.
Yeah.
You know, you put the uniform on, you went out there and you gave it a try. Nobody grabs that kid and says, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You have no business being out there.
Yeah.
But that's what we do to ourselves.
It is. Yeah.
It's literally what we do to ourselves.
It totally is.
We walk away and we go, what was I thinking? I had no business being in there.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times it feeds off, like, walking into the situation, we'll have doubt, you know? And then if we don't succeed or we don't do as well as we thought we should have or whatever, then it's it just confirms that bias, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, cause you're just, I knew I shouldn't have bothered. It wasn't worth my, you know, and it's like, no, you still tried. Like, that's worth something, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing when you stop, and perspective is one of my favorite words, you know, next to, of course, choice and shenanigans, because shenanigans is a fun word to say. But but I love perspective, because how so often that's what we need someone, be it ourselves, someone from the outside looking in. It doesn't matter where it comes from, but sometimes we need that reframing and that perspective. It makes everything fall into place. It's like turning the puzzle pieces up when they've been upside down. It just, all of a sudden, the picture becomes clearer, and it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense. Something that I use is I love Stuart Smalley, which is an old sketch from Saturday Night Live. And part of the beauty of the sketch is he's a self-help person, and he sits and he looks at himself in the mirror, and he says, and I'm going to paraphrase it, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. Doggone it.
Yep.
See? I know it's going to be
Yep. You always
I'm always
do.
close, but I'm never right on with when I quote things.
Yeah.
But regardless, I do that often. I will revert back to that, and I'll just remember that, and it makes me smile every single time. But it also helps me to kind of break that cycle, break through the negativity, and all of a sudden I can look at things a slightly bit different, and it just all starts coming into place. It all just starts just looking right again when things were so dark and so skewed before.
Yeah.
So it's just so important just to reframe and really take a look at that perspective and just get outside of your own head and get outside of your own mind for a little while.
Well, it's funny because it's funny how many artists can't find perspective and can't reframe when that literally is all you're doing when you're in art classes is you're learning how to see, you know, like there's a technique to help you draw, like if you're trying to draw something small but make it bigger, obviously, you could use like, a projector to enlarge it. But if you want to do it like by hand, the way that you generally do it is you use a grid. Like you draw a grid on the smaller object and then on the bigger object, and you do the corresponding squares one at a time. And it teaches you to just see shape, not the overall concept. And, generally when you do it, like your first efforts are going to, it'll look a little wonky probably, but over time practicing that, you realize that it really does make transferring so much easier than trying to see the whole face or the whole whatever it is that you're trying to draw. You're just looking at a little square. And okay, what shapes are in that square, and then replicate them. And there's another one that is where like if you're gonna like trace things or whatever for the sake of, like you've done your rough sketch, you're gonna transfer it to a new board or whatever it is, but you do it backwards because, or when you're drawing, because then you don't focus on, your eye doesn't recognize those shapes the same way when it's backwards. So it allows you to look at it as just abstract shape versus, oh, that's a person sitting on a park bench type of a thing. Now it may not work as well with that, but that it's kind of the effort or the example there is, but both things are forcing you to take a different perspective and to reframe how you see. And it's to make things less complicated. And it's so funny how, like I said, and I hadn't really thought about it until we got into this conversation about just how interesting it is to me, that I've learned various techniques for how to make things less complicated via reframing / perspective tricks. But it never like clicks in my head that essentially to do the same thing for your own brain, like just for, trying to make things easier on yourself.
Exactly. And I don't know why, for some reason, Insane in the Membrane just popped in my head. So I have a little music happening up there right now.
Right.
Craziness, right?
Yep.
So, well, that was a really awesome talk. Are we good, guys?
Yep.
Sweet. Well, folks, you know what that means. If you would like to carry on the conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you. Any ideas that you would have, if you want to come on the show, if you just want to talk about the topics we talked about, or want to reach out and talk to us about just about anything, we're open to hear from you. So you can reach us at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. Our email is crazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can reach me. The easiest way to reach me is through Twitter, and that's at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with the G. Feel free to follow and just shoot me a direct message, and I'd be happy to talk, and we can have all sorts of fun. If you want to hear more from me, you can also hear me on ShakeTheSheets.com is the website. It's a pop culture talk podcast that I do weekly. And Hanno, how can they reach you?
Find me on Twitter at Ida Hanno. Find me on Facebook Messenger, Hanno Heiter. And if you are into Quentin Tarantino movies, on the Moving the Needle podcast this week, we just released our review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and kind of chatted about his overall filmography. And it was a really fun conversation. I really liked that movie, too. It was great.
That's nice. And you, Brian?
You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other show at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is definitely not safe for work, so be careful whose ears are open around you. You can find this show on Twitter also at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And missing something here. Oh, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com, and part of the Danger Entertainment Network, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. Whew. yeah, go check out both of those networks, and probably find some other shows you enjoy. Really quick before I do the last part of this, the Tim Ferriss thing I was referencing is fear journaling or fear setting instead of goal setting. He does fear setting. And I've got the link to a couple of his TED Talks in the show notes if you want to find that or listen to that. I don't think it's a very long talk, but if not, he's talked about it on episodes of the show as well. But it's a strategy of flipping the perspective to gain success. And I think, I think it's interesting. One last thing on this is another thing interesting about that is that it forces you to exercise new muscles. You can't just go into muscle memory. Like if you're stuck in a depression loop, it'll be harder to stay right there while you're trying to write as someone else to you, type of thing. So, that's another reason I think a lot of these exercises are starting to pop up from different people, because, you go, I've been doing this for the longest time. Eventually it's like, yeah, this doesn't work anymore. So now it's like, well, I'll flip the script and see what happens. And then you're like, oh, hey, from this side of the fence. So, yeah. And, of course, as usual, I'll say, if you need help, please reach out. I shared a great piece the other day, on Facebook. I should post it on our Twitter too. That talks about how therapy isn't just for like mental, depression or mental illness, and I think that's a real good thing that I think everyone should look at and, give some consideration to, because I've said on here plenty of times, but it's, the idea of walking into a room with someone that has no judgment and is there for you is such a powerful thing. And I think because of the stupid stigma that therapy has carried for years, I think it, a lot of people have done a disservice to themselves and others by demonizing it the way it was, oh, they're just after your money and all this. It's like, well, you can just quit going. You don't have to keep going back. You can choose when you choose when therapy's over, So, but anyway, if you need help, please reach out, of course, at least reach out to a friend or someone you can talk to, as Hanno mentioned earlier, if you have a moment that you feel is however you want to look at it, a moment of weakness, a moment of potential relapse, whatever it is, no matter what your situation, double down on your support system, or just go back and re-strengthen that muscle, and yeah. And of course, also, let's keep trying to be nice to one another. Let's just keep putting kindness out there. I'm so tired of the hate, and it's not just politics and that kind of stuff. It's like there just seems to be this like overwhelming just cloud of hate that it's just like the whole internet kind of a thing. It's like nobody can do anything without, a bunch of people attacking it. And I don't mean that in a like sensitive way. It's just even if someone's like, hey, here's something new and cool, there's this huge group of people like, boo, it's like, come on, like, let's just be a little gentler with this stuff, let's just, if you don't like something, cool, as long as it ain't harming anybody else. Like, I was reading earlier today some very negative things about Kevin Smith announcing that he's, leading Netflix's He-Man project, and it's like, how about you just be excited that there's more He-Man coming? How about that? And if you're not, cool, go back and watch the other stuff. It still exists. It's not like this coming out makes the old thing disappear. So, anyway, but, just try to do something nice for somebody whenever you can. And again, as we've talked on here, that includes for yourself. Do this exercise. do other exercises to try to, do things to be kinder to yourself as well as to others. And I think that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, go out there, everybody, and have a positive week. Remember, it's your choice.